I'm Hutchinson County Judge Cindy Irwin, and this is Texas County Voice, a podcast for all 254 counties. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to Texas County Voice. I'm Lisa Ogle with the Texas Association of Counties. We're getting ready to host county officials, staff, and IT professionals for the third annual County Technology Conference, May 20th through 23rd in Georgetown, just north of Austin. This year's conference will be packed with sessions on cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and web accessibility. Web accessibility has become a critical topic for counties in the wake of the Department of Justice releasing its final rule last year, with compliance deadlines looming. One of the experts on this topic who will be speaking at the conference is Chris Rivenberg of accessible.org, which is based in San Antonio. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
What is the Department of Justice's final rule on web accessibility, and what are the deadlines for counties?
The final rule gets at, hey, we need to make our websites, our web content, possibly even mobile apps. We all need to make these conformant with these technical standards for accessibility. So the focus is on websites, all of the content on our website, and really documents, mostly for counties. There are two deadlines depending on whether the county has a population of 50,000 or less, or more than 50,000. So if you're in a smaller population, then you have until April 26, 2027. And if you're in a larger population, it's going to be April 24, 2026.
How has the rule impacted counties so far?
Counties have now need to make a number of decisions. I think one of the first ones is going to be who is leading these efforts. So we need to organize our efforts, and we need someone who is leading the way. Counties need to contemplate the budget, also planning in terms of timeline, because we do need to meet these deadlines. And there's a reason the DOJ gave as much time as they did, is because the DOJ is aware that it can take a while to make these different digital assets accessible. And then we also need to take inventory. So what is it that we need to be aware of? It could be our website. It could be our different social media channels. It could be the different documents that we post online. So all of these different things, we need to be aware of them, and we need to take inventory so that we can ensure we meet compliance by the deadline.
Yes, we will be talking about budget a little bit more in a second. The Texas Association of Counties County Information Resources Agency, or CIRA, provides website services to counties. And when a county gets its website from CIRA, that would be considered the product side of accessibility. CIRA members will be pleased to know that the out-of-the-box platform, known as the product side, gets very high marks for web accessibility. Then there's the content side of the website, things like images, headers, text, links to other content, including PDFs. Chris, what is the county's role when it comes to ensuring that the content side of the website is accessible?
The counties need to make sure that all of their video, audio, text, images, all of the content is WCAG 2.1 conform. These web content accessibility guidelines are technical standards with different requirements for accessibility. We look to this technical standard to determine how exactly we need to make this content accessible.
What is an example, perhaps images, that would abide by the WCAG? And also, why does that matter to people who need to be able to access that information?
Let's say we have a graphic. It could have a graph, and we need to make sure that that graph is accessible to not only people who can visually see it, but people who may not be able to see it, who may be using a screen reader. So we have to make sure that we provide alternative text, which is going to relay the meaning of that image for people who cannot visually see that image. Having alt text there is just an alternative way of accessing the meaning of that image.
What are the key provisions of the rule that counties should be aware of?
I would start with just overall, generally the different digital assets need to be WCAG 2.1 AA conformant. And when I say digital assets, all that means is like our websites and our web content documents. Correct. Start with the technical standard, but then keep in mind that there are several very important exceptions And we want to make sure that we're not working on any content that is accepted under this new web rule.
Now that they've learned a little bit about the final rule. Fortunately, County Information Resources Agency, or CIRA, is about to start an email series all about accessibility. Counties can sign up at county.org/accessibility-help, which we'll link in the show notes. Chris, what are other steps counties should take?
I think that all counties should have two people who read through the requirements and exceptions. And this won't take long, but I think this is so important because you want to understand exactly what you do and do not need to do. Those two people can compare notes. And then from there, you're going to plan and budget. You're going to create a timeline, and then also assign roles and responsibilities, because many different people are going to be involved in this. And ultimately, everyone really needs to play a part with accessibility, because everyone is involved in some form or fashion in creating documents or working on the website or posting or creating content. So everyone needs to learn this to make sure that we don't undo any of our efforts. After that, I would say training and then learning strategically where to outsource, because you will need some outside expertise to initially bring you up to where you are meeting the technical standard in time for the compliance deadline.
Absolutely. And CIRA will be helping counties with that. You mentioned budget. Counties are already in the budget season. So do you have any recommendations for how they should be budgeting for this?
Yes, I would say if you plan for $10,000 to $15,000 on a website, that should make you good to go and for everything when it comes to a website. For documents, I would say if you plan for $10 a page conservatively, this is going to help not only to where you're going to find the accessibility issues for the website, but you're also going to fix them with the documents. This could fix the documents completely. And I provide these numbers just as estimates for budgeting. It likely won't cost that much in the end. And then, of course, there's the content side of this. And the content really is going to range. It's going to depend mostly on how much content there is. And part of taking inventory and learning about all of the digital assets that you have that need to be worked on in time for compliance is you can also decide what you no longer need. So that's one way of when you're looking at the budget and you think, well, this might go over budget. You can also think, well, do we need this content? Can we archive this? Do we need to have all of these pages? Do they serve a purpose?
What are some best practices for integrating accessibility into county's workflow?
First, I would say to learn the web content accessibility guidelines, and these are the technical standards I've been referring to. If you learn these, it's not only going to help you with the technical side of accessibility and what you need to do and training and making sure that your team doesn't introduce accessibility issues. It's also going to help you with procurement and budgeting, because you'll understand what needs to be done. And so what happens a lot of times is that just beyond counties, like anybody, when they're first trying to purchase accessibility services, they can purchase what they don't need, which can waste valuable budget on things that aren't really going to help them with what they need to do. So if you learn the web content accessibility guidelines, it's going to make you a more informed buyer. You can also look for these different requirements under the technical standard. You can assign them, you can have the different roles that pertain to each success criteria, learn those specific success criteria. And that way, the people who are working on certain things are focused on the accessibility requirements that they need to be most aware of. I would also create checklists for the flows for these different roles. And then I would also add a reference sheet just for shortcuts like shorthand, just to be aware of, okay, this is the accessibility consideration. I can recall that now because I know that there are these specific things involved, but now I've got this reference sheet to quickly look at as I'm going through my normal everyday roles. Maybe it's content creation, maybe it's something else. But if you start with the web content accessibility guidelines, it's going to help so much because you're aware of not only the technical requirements, but also the principles. The more familiar you are with them, the more you go through them, the more you will be able to integrate them into your daily role.
Let's talk about the conference now. What can attendees of the County Technology Conference expect from your sessions?
They can expect that accessibility is going to be made as simple and as easy to understand as possible. When you get into the marketplace, when you start looking at services, when you start looking at different digital accessibility companies and what they offer, you can easily be overwhelmed by all of the technical terms and just the familiarity of web accessibility in general. But it's really not too difficult. You just have to understand the fundamentals. And then once you do, it's rather intuitive. So in the conference, I'm going to break everything down. And I think what's going to be really helpful is I'm also going to answer any and all questions that anybody has regarding this. And this can range from specific technical requirements all the way into planning and budgeting. You'll know how to move forward. So that's one key takeaway, is that if you attend these sessions, we're not just going to talk about this generally and theoretically. We're going to get into the specifics and the how-tos and the steps 1, 2, 3. You will learn more about the practical side. We're going to actually talk about how do we make this happen for you as a county. And I think broadly, you can expect to have more confidence and relief going forward, because we're going to take this out of something that might be arbitrary or might seem too technically complex, and we're going to make it much more simple and much more doable.
What do you expect attendees can do with the information that they learn from the conference?
First, they can have more confidence in knowing that they have a better sense of accessibility and how to implement it into their regular processes, and not as something that it's separate from what they do, but let's make this a part of what we already do. It's not going to be that much more additional. It's just like you're going to be adding this specialized subset of knowledge. I think attendees can also take away that while there will be an initial bump in cost, it's going to slope downwards, because a lot of the cost is going to result just from the simple fact that you're unfamiliar with this and it's new. But what you're going to do is you're going to absorb this information. And as you learn more about accessibility, your costs are going to slope down. And then, as I said, understanding that this is a specialized subset of knowledge, but everyone can understand it. That's why in the beginning, I mentioned training and education are so important. The conference is going to help so many people. And then also, I think one other key takeaway here is understanding that everyone is going to play a part in accessibility. So it's not just something that, oh, this is the coordinator or this is the IT person. No, it's going to be a collaborative group effort, and some people will work on accessibility more, but we want everyone on the same page so that we're all moving in the same direction and nobody's undoing our efforts.
How do you see web accessibility evolving in the coming years, and what role does technology play in this progression?
I think it's going to be easier. We've already seen it get easier. Artificial intelligence has already made this something where we've been able to save so much time just in, let's just say, closed captions or subtitles, right? AI has already made that easier. And I think that's only going to continue. But I will say that right now, what's happening in the marketplace is we're seeing some companies overplaying what technology is capable of. And I think it's important for all listeners to know this isn't something that we can simply automate. And I think that comes through in the web rule. The DOJ is educated on accessibility, and they knew this. So you can see the DOJ, you see it coming through with the deadlines. The DOJ gave 2 and 3 years for the different sizes of public entities, the state and local government, to work through accessibility. They did not provide this timeline because accessibility can be automated. So I think that's very important for everyone to know, is that this isn't something where you can just buy software and take care of this really quickly. This is in part why it's important to be educated on accessibility, so you can understand exactly how technology can improve your efforts. So once you understand the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and you see some of these really nice tools out in the marketplace, you can understand, oh, that's exactly how that can help me with accessibility. Now I can see the value here. And yes, this is going to help us a lot with closed captions, for example. Alternative text could be another example. And there's so many more ways that we can decrease the amount of time necessary to work on some of the content accessibility.
Any final thoughts?
Attend this conference. The conference is going to be really good. We're going to make everything as simple and as easy to understand as possible. If you have any doubts about this new web rule and how to meet the compliance deadline, we are going to take care of those doubts, and you will know exactly how to move forward after the conference.
And people can get a preview on your YouTube channel, right?
Yes, my YouTube channel is the ADA book. And if you search for ADA Title II web series, I've taken the DOJ's guidance on this and I explain it on video, but then I also give you a more practical application of this so that you can understand how these different action steps that the DOJ has put out, how they can work in practice and how they play out in real life. That web series, it's specifically designed to help everyone who's looking to work to this compliance with this new web rule. I think it's really helpful. And I think the DOJ did a very good job with the guidance. And I just took it to the next step.
And those action steps will also be reiterated if anyone joins our mailing list. So that's great. They'll dovetail. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Texas County Voice, and a huge thank you to Chris Rivenberg for his insights about web accessibility. You can find more insights from him and details about the 2025 County Technology Conference in the current issue of County Magazine. If you haven't yet registered for the conference, it's not too late. Just go to county.org. Until next time.